Okay, hello, Wouter. I'm Smithy Q. I've looked at your game briefly. Here are some thoughts. Just first, my credentials is that I'm rated approximately 2,000 in Blitz. I've been as high as 2150 in correspondence chess. I taught some chess at a chess club. I helped some beginners, and so hopefully this will help you. So in your game, the good news is that you got a pretty good foundation, especially in the beginning. And with increased tactical awareness, you're going to be you'll become a monster pretty soon. Everyone says tactics, tactics. There really is no shortcut to increasing our tactical vision. But there are some other things that we can look at as well, which will hopefully help your thinking and your thought process. So you're white, and your first nearly 10 moves are just about as good as you can get, honestly, because your opponent's playing, you know, some funny moves, and look at that. You develop, you put your pawns in the center, you castle right away. Who knows what he's doing? You're developing. That's great. I mean, I can't ask for much more than this. I will say two things quickly, though. Many beginners are encouraged to play with one e4 first, just because the positions tend to become more open. Now, if black were playing this against one e4, this style, maybe the position still gets closed. But the problem is, in these types of block closed positions, there's no open lines yet, there's been no exchanges. It can be hard to take advantage of your advantages. And here you've got a space advantage, you've got development advantage, you've got the safer king, you've got a host of advantages, you've got a great position, but it's not so easy what to do from here. What do you do? In this position, right, or in these types of positions, your overwhelming thought should be trying to get at his king, simply because you've castled, he hasn't. And if you could open the center, if we could somehow, get some pawn exchanges happening, get the rook sliding over, that'd be absolutely fantastic. You're probably just winning at that point. The thing is, that's really hard to do. So what do we do? Sorry, it's black to move, and then he made another random move, right? So you're doing huge. And so you had the right sort of idea here when you played d5. But what would happen if black just castled? Or what did black do in the game? Black played bishop f6. Okay, that's a silly move. Let's pretend black... You know what? Let's pretend black moves the knight right back. Right? Let's say, you take. Has much changed? Are you doing much better after this exchange? Not really. Like, his king is still safe behind his pawns. You've got a half-open d-file. It's not doing much. d5 is the right sort of idea. I think it needs to be prepared more. And it's never, especially at your level, it's never a bad thing to get all your pieces into the game first. So just imagine if instead of playing d5, you play queen d2. What you're going to do is you're going to bring this rook in, you're going to bring this rook in, you're fully developed, you're all ready to go by like move 12, and then you can decide whether to play d5, e5, maybe c5, maybe you can advance over, you know what? Almost any of your pawns really could move, because you have all your pieces of the game. You can do anything. You would also have an interesting threat. Not that, no. Of potentially playing bishop h6, exchanging his best piece. Let's just imagine, let's say he castled. Something like this were to happen. Oh, shoot! You're doing amazing. You got knight g5 coming. We're going to threaten mate. Maybe we could do h4, h5, or we're threatening mate. We're attacking. We're getting right at his king. So simply taking a step back, finishing development, would have given you an incredibly easy game. d5 is the right idea. I think it's a little bit rushed. Another thing to notice is that, back up a second, this knight right now, can I make it a color? There it is. Make it red. It's pretty terrible, right? It can go here, and that's it. As soon as you push it to d5, you give it the option of coming to these two squares as well. And so pushing d5, again, it's the right idea, perhaps not the best execution. Let's go forward. He played bishop f6, but again, you're still playing really well here. He plays rook g8, which is just kind of funky. And now, here you play queen a4. And after knight c5, again, that knight's taking advantage of that square that we gave it, you move your queen to a3. Which I don't quite understand this maneuver. What it looks like to me is that you're either going pawn grabbing or piece hunting. Is that after queen a5, you're trying to win a pawn here, or maybe attack the bishop. You know, that's it. Whereas black has a number of moves here, including just moving the bishop back, exchanging, or the best move in the knight c5, forcing your queen to go somewhere. Again, queen a5 is, I think it's too cute, or it's trying to force something. Again, we don't necessarily need to worry about grabbing his pawns. What we want to do is finish development. Play queen d2. Get your rooks into the game, and then figure out what to do after that. Once all your pieces are in the game, the rest tends to come pretty easy, especially at your level, around the 1200-1300 range. Notice, in fact, that this rook takes almost 30 moves before it gets into the game, whereas you could have had it by move 12. So one way to think about that is for the first 30 moves, you're playing without a rook. Yeah, I mean, when you put it that way, it sounds amazing, right? Get the rooks into the game. Get everything into the game, especially when black is wasting time. When black is wasting time doing these weird pawn moves, and moving his knight around, and he's got his rook on g8 for some reason, that's time. And you want to use that time effectively. And if you use that time, you know, your tempi, to bring all your pieces into the game, your advantages tend to increase. And even if the computer says it's not the 100% perfectly best move, it's a pretty damn good move. Let's go forward a little bit. And so then there is a little tactical thing here where your bishop got trapped. Whoops. But black's position is so poor that after b4, you're able to actually win it a piece right back. So that's kind of funny. And that's good for us. Now I want to look at this position here. So we talked about the beginning. Tempi. Excellent. Good. Here. You now start a series of moves where you do, for lack of a better word, you're retreating a lot. You play knight d5, which I like. And then you retreat. And then you retreat. And then a few moves later, let me just jump ahead, you win a pawn, and then you retreat again. And so it seems as if your default reaction to being threatened is simply to retreat. We need to ask ourselves, is there something else? And another thing, okay, there's your knight on c3. It's nice and pretty. Then you move to here. Is it much better? Is it much worse? Is it worth spending 2 moves, 2 tempi, to move your knight from c3 to e3? Probably not. And when you play knight d5, you have to ask yourself, well, what do you do if he kicks it away? And if your only idea is to move it right back, maybe you can find something else. What can we do besides knight to d5? Well, one possibility would be to bring our rook into the game. Last piece in, excellent. I'm going to harp on this a little bit. Another option is to look at the tactical weaknesses in this position. Tactical weaknesses, or hanging pieces, or anything that's not defended. And we've talked about his king being in the center. This rook isn't defended. And so maybe I can turn it red. There we go. So it's potentially a target. Neither knight is actually defended, and they're targets. I'll keep his king colored. And when you combine this, a really, something that leaps out to me would be to play bishop b5. Can I put that on the board? Yes, let's do that. So the bishop protected, so that's great. We're pinning the knight, and the knight's attacked. And now we got a really easy follow-up, actually. He's probably going to defend it. We can attack it. He's going to have to defend it. We can move our rook over. And so now all we have to do is move our knight somewhere. I don't know, maybe go there. Then it can go to d4, where it's attacking the knight. That's pretty nice. We can double our rooks. And everything's targeting his weakness. which is pinned, it can't move, and you're probably just going to win. So that is probably a pretty good way of doing it. But let's look at your moves. Because knight d5, that looks excellent as well. Look at that knight comes up. e6. Now, your first instinct was to retreat, and I agree that makes a lot of sense. But retreating is almost always bad. Almost always. If you analyze this with the computer, I can almost guarantee that the computer is going to say that every retreat you make, where you just move your pieces back, wasn't the best move. There was something else you could have done. Even here, all right? What else could we do? What is another option besides retreating? Okay, yeah, he's attacking our knight, but can we create other threats as well? We can. For instance, we could play, again, bishop b5. We're attacking his knight. If he takes, well, we could take with check, and then we're also hitting his knight, and his king, and the pawn. That's nice. And if he defends, again, we can still put a lot of pressure on the knight. And also notice is that if he takes, even if we can just take back with the pawn, the knight's pinned all the way through, and it's attacked. We're going to win it back. And look, this e-file is wide open. We can now put our rooks or our queen, and we're busting on in. His king's in huge danger now. In fact, I'm pretty sure after e6, you could just do a nothing move, like king h8. Take, with this file open, with these checks like this, and you've got a huge attack. Now, is that the best move? No, but it's an option. And that I'm trying to highlight this because so often we retreat because we think it's the only move, but we've got options if we look for them. Let's look at another one. He plays b5, attacking our bishop, and you retreat. Okay. Again, that makes sense. Our bishop's attacked. We need to do something about that. Agreed. Do we have to retreat? Is there anything else we can do? Notice, if this rook weren't on this rank, then you could just take the pawn, and that'd be pretty nice, right? And the rook is worth more than the bishop, so if we attack the rook, you'd have to move it somewhere, and then if it moves away, we can take the pawn for free. That'd be pretty cool. So the move I'd want to play is f4, attacking the rook. Again, if the rook retreats, we win a pawn, we're happy. If the rook tries to stay, notice how every other square is defended by a white piece, and so the only square the rook could go would be here. And so now we could either play g4, or we could play bishop e2 to attack the rook. The rook would have to move, and then we take. I know I said you don't want to retreat, but bishop e2 is probably better, just because it's not a pawn move. It keeps our king a little bit safer. So just imagine bishop e... Oh, gosh. ChessBase is a great program, except for when it isn't. Just imagine bishop e2, the rook moves somewhere, and then we come back and take the pawn. Possibility, right? And if you only think retreat, then you miss that. And notice how black has been improving his position the last few moves. e6 and b5, he's pushing you back. We don't want to get pushed back. We want to go forward. Then there is a5, and then he did a weird move. Okay, b4. Hey, you moved forward. You didn't retreat with your queen down to b2, right? You're attacking the knight. You're pinning the knight. He has to do something about that. Okay, excellent. There you go. Though queen b2 going on the long diagonal might have been pretty nice as well. Anyway, knight a5, so he's kind of tangled up over here. Knight c2. Again, this knight, how can we increase the pressure? I really want to play this move. I want to play this move so badly. Another possibility would be something like this, where, if we takes, we could take this knight first, and then come back and take, right? And so this is where, when good players, or when players tell beginners to improve their tactics, this is the type of things they mean, right? It's not always just simple, forks and tactical puzzles, right? But it's thinking tactically, if you will, trying to get the tactics to work for you. And a big part of that is resisting the automatic urge to retreat. It's to get all your pieces firing in one direction and to keep going if you can. There's actually just one more on this theme I want to look at. Is he played queen b6, and then you took a pawn, and then you attacked your rook, and you moved it all the way back. And what's really interesting to me is that you spent about a minute taking the pawn, and then only 30 seconds to retreat the rook all the way back. What could you do besides retreating? Could we possibly get our last rook into the game? Hopefully that looks a bit more obvious now. Right? We bring the rook in. Okay, let me just put it there here. Look at this. All your pieces are here. You're threatening to maybe come here or here. Maybe we could get knight d4 in, or maybe knight e3, c5. You've got a billion moves you can do here. And black is all over the board. You're just going to wipe them off the board in seconds, right? It's going to be a romp from here. When you retreat, you give him chances again, right? Because then this rook is still doing nothing. So hopefully I hammered that home. Two real thoughts we're looking at. The very beginning, right? You developed, that's great. Finish development, right? Right? Okay? This idea with d5, trying to get his king, I like that. I really do. But finish your development first. Just force yourself to do it and then go at his king. And I think your results will improve so much just from that. And then second, once the tactics start flying, the pieces are hitting each other, right? Before you automatically retreat, right? Give yourself a thought. Can you keep going forward? Because if you start thinking like that, you're going to find more and more moves, more and more possibilities. And you're going to find moves that your opponent was not expecting, and then they're going to make funky, weird moves, and they're going to throw the game. I'm just zooming ahead a little bit. Now, at this point, you're very low on time, so I'm not going to criticize or look at this too much. Queen g3 would have been a great idea, except after the exchange of queens. It's probably a drawn rook endgame. Here, though, well, I guess it doesn't really matter because he took here and you got your rook behind. Rooks belong behind passed pawns. Imagine if he would have done this instead. It's really hard to defend this pawn if you have to do something like this. Imagine he hits you back, you move over, he's going to bring his king right here. You can never move the pawn, he'll just take it. You can never move your rook, he'll just take it. Kind of sucks. So if you were to put your rook here first, then imagine he takes the pawn and you're able to push. It's the same as the game, but it's a better position. You stop giving black an option. Anyway, put your rook behind pawns. That's all I'm saying. And now, yeah. I'll just zoom ahead a little bit here because you play this. I mean, I'm pretty sure black self-destructs here. Yeah, because then you get your rook over to the king. There it is. So the question is, how do you win this? And now this isn't something that you can rely so much on general principles. This is something you just need to know. What do you do? Let's sorry, make it black. So there's black's sorry, black's last move. And so really the secret is you want to get your king there as close as possible. If your king can touch the pawn before the pawn gets to the bottom rank here, you almost always win. Almost always. So that is, if you can get this king, you know, here, say, before the pawn gets here, you pretty much win. And we can see it. You can even do that right now. Right. So take, move your king there. He moves his king. Bring the rook. You pin him. You're going to pick up the pawn, and that's it. So the sooner you get your king to the enemy pawn, the better. And that's it. Notice what you did in the game. Is that, okay, you took, which is fine. This is still winning. We just, again, bring the king over. All right, he pushes the pawn. We bring our king. If he pushes the pawn again, it's really simple. We can just move our rook right here, protect the pawn. He defends it. We attack it. He can't push the pawn because he loses it. But if he stays there, he loses it anyway. So that's really the rule with this type of endgame. If you can get your king to his pawn, and unless your rook's in a really funky position, you'll win the pawn. You'll be fine. So, and one more possibility. Let's just look at one more. Let's say he pushes. Okay, sorry. Let's say he pushes. All right. Well, same thing. Now we're attacking this pawn. You can't defend it because your rook controls it. So maybe he keeps pushing this pawn. Nope. And even, this is kind of cool, because you still have a pawn. Let's say maybe he brings, okay, frig. Okay, we win the pawn. Maybe he moves to the king. You could always just sacrifice your rook for the pawn and then queen this pawn. So that's the option, right? And so that's just the power of the king. So really, there's three things I talked about here, right? Development. At the very beginning. Get all your pieces of the game, because you did so well for the first 10 moves. Let's see if I can actually go back, right? Look at this. Let's go right here. Like, you've got a dream position. You're doing amazing, all right? Yes, you want to open the position up. I fully get that. But just finish development first. Queen d2, get your rooks in, and then you'll win. That's it. And then when it comes to tactics, don't automatically retreat. I mean, you can't find a better move, retreat. Yes, sometimes you have to. But try not to make that your default. Especially when you feel like you're doing better, like in this type of position. Right? Where is it? You know, right around here. You should be thinking like you're doing better, because you are. Right? His king's still in the center. Things are like funky and wild, but it's a good time to think about tactics at that point, because you'll probably find something. If you don't, you can retreat then, right? But don't make that default. And then lastly, when it comes to the end games, get your king to his pawn, and if you do that, good things will tend to happen. Okay, so that's that. Hopefully you found that helpful. Look at your other games. Ask yourself, are you starting attacks, or are you finishing development? Are you leaving your rooks in the corner? See if that's common. Look at your common tactical errors, right? How often are you missing tactics for yourself because you're blindly retreating your pieces without considering if there's another option? Right? Because these are very, very common themes among beginners that I've seen. All right, but that's that. So again, if you found that helpful, let me know. That'd be great. Good luck with your chess, and we'll talk soon. Take care. Bye for now.